Hello and welcome to This Week in Housing. My name's Sarah Eggleston. I'm with John L. Scott, and I'm here to bring you the weekly news and market updates for our area. So I do have a number of slides to cover today, so I'll get hopped into it. But before I do, I just wanted to say that I think this is episode number 34 or 35 of This Week in Housing. So those of you that have been watching throughout the year, I truly appreciate it. I really love bringing these updates. At first, I must admit, they were a little scary to do live real estate updates, but I have really come to enjoy this time. So thank you so much for joining me throughout the year. The next 2 weeks, we won't have an update on Friday because it's Christmas and New Year's Day. So we will be skipping those 2 weeks, but on Wednesday the 30th, I will be right back here, kind of splitting the difference between those 2 days and give a yearly recap, a 2020 recap and a 2021 forecast for the year. So that might be just a slightly longer episode, but it will take place in lieu of those 2 episodes that we are missing. So Wednesday the 30th, put it on your calendar. I will put reminders out as well, but I'll go ahead and jump into my slides for today. Ooh, wrong one. Stop share. Sorry, screen share. There we go. That's the right one. Okay, so welcome back to This Week in Housing. It is another Blue Friday. Got my Seahawks vest on, got my colors. They did take home a pretty significant win last week against the Jets, 40-3. Mistype on that on the text there, but the typed box is correct. Seahawks 40, Jets 3. So what a whooping on that one. So we are playing again this Sunday at 10 a.m. Make sure to tune in. I will be watching and cheering on our True Blues. So I mentioned this one last week, but I did just want to touch base on it again real quick. COVID-19 real estate restrictions were updated at the beginning of December 8th. So these are in place until January 4th. There are no in-person open houses permitted. Brokers must work from home when possible, and real estate offices are closed to the general public, and occupancy is limited. So most real estate agents are working from home. There are some that are going into the office and working, but you can't have client meetings in the office right now. So if you need to have a face-to-face meeting with a client at this point in time, it'll be in the home or, at a park or something over Zoom, but the offices are closed to the general public for now. So I talked about this earlier in the year. This was supposed to go into place earlier in the year, but got postponed until December. So now the 0.5% mortgage refi fee is here. So this fee applies to refinances. So that it doesn't apply to new home purchases. And will be levied on refis valued $125,000 or more for loans that are ultimately sold to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So the government-backed mortgages are going to be issuing this fee to refinances, but jumbo mortgages, so those above 510, 400, are also exempt. So there's kind of the sweet spot in the middle, 125 to 510. That is where that fee is going to apply. And it'll probably be wrapped up in the interest rate. So these are really historic interest rates. So it's really not going to make that much of a difference if you look at historic mortgage rates overall. And why does the refinance fee exist? It was to kind of stabilize the $6 billion in assistance that was provided for the coronavirus protections. It left just kind of a deficit on this money, so they have to recollect it somehow. So that's why they're doing this fee. But most refinances will get hit with the fee. But as I said, if it's below 125,000 or above that jumbo threshold, you won't get charged this fee. Or if it's a portfolio lender. So it's only Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac backed loans. With VA and FHA loans are an exemption. So as far as mortgage rates, if we take a look at last week, we were at 2.71, and we are now 2.67, which brings us to our 15th record low of the year. So as I said before, mortgage rates are pretty low and they are continuing to drop. So excuse me, but they are sitting at 2.67, which is just mind-blowing, actually. So this is the instant reaction to mortgage rates from the National Association of Realtors. There's no doubt that these ultra-low mortgage rates significantly lower the borrowing costs, making home buying more attractive to renters. In the meantime, the share of millennial renters that can afford to buy the typical home rose in 2019 by 9% and 3% compared to a year and 5 years earlier. So, but one thing to note is affordability conditions may vary from area to area and demographic. Fast rising home prices seem to be eroding the benefits of these low rates in some areas, making it more difficult for renters to accomplish their home buying dream. This is definitely pretty true in our area. If you look at a house and theoretically what it would have been purchased for last year at those interest rates, as opposed to what it would be purchased for this year at these interest rates, the monthly payment is really not that far off. So even though we're seeing these crazy low interest rates, it's kind of a wash with our rising home values. And different demographics are hit by this differently across our nation. So if we bring it back to local area, for King County, we had 298 new listings in the last 7 days, 795 pendings, and 765 sold. So you can see the disparity in inventory and sales there. And yeah, we're dropping off on the new listings, which is definitely to be expected in this time of year. We see the fewest new listings in December because of the holidays, and normally people would be traveling. Maybe they're not this year, but this is something that we would expect to see. However, buyer demand has remained stronger than we would expect to see at this time of year. For national showing data, we are kind of dropping off. I feel like, well, the buying activity in our specific area or local greater Seattle area, Puget Sound region is a lot stronger than some places nationally. So it's, I don't know, it's interesting to see how quickly it's dropping off as we approach the new year. But it's not entirely unexpected. And if we look at this year locally for the Northwest MLS, so basically Western Washington, um, the blue line on here is this year. The yellow line or orange line is last year. So we are significantly above showings this year as opposed to where we were last year. However, we are down almost 7% from last week. But I did put the last 3 weeks there. So you see 3 weeks ago, we dropped 31% on our showing traffic, and that was Thanksgiving. So people were spending time at home and enjoying the holiday rather than out looking at homes. And then showing traffic jumped up 44% the week after that. And now we're back down 7%. So there was a whole rush that week after Thanksgiving to get out there and can we find anything before the holiday? And then now we're kind of, people are backing off and paying attention to the holiday season a little bit more. So this is interesting to see. This is residential and residential and condo statistics for King County. The residential, you can see our inventory of homes for sale is down almost 40% from what it was last year. And our condo inventory is up 35% from where it is last year. So I've mentioned the tale of two markets in this program before, and this is just continuing to illustrate that there is a lot of different things happening between the residential market and the condo market. So, yeah, and homes, the median sales price up 12%, average sales price up 14 for residential. Average sales price up 24% for condo, and median sales price up 7% for condo year to year. So it's interesting to see how these are playing out. But the residential, there's just no listings for residential. So we need to get some more inventory in there, and hopefully we can start to see that come back early in January. Typically, we won't see the bulk of it until spring. So we'll see how quickly that jumps into action next year. So this is the Housing Market Recovery Index. It takes 4 components: demand, supply, price, and time on market, and takes those characteristics, and I'm not sure what formula they use, but they're judging the health of the housing market over the course of this year. So you can see our big plunge from the coronavirus from March to May. And since then, it's been a pretty swift recovery over the months. And now we're kind of starting to level out on our recovery because we've reached 112 points when our baseline is 100. Our pre-pandemic baseline was 100. So we're doing better now than we were pre-pandemic. And so the average gain in equity of mortgaged homes over the course of this year was $17,000. For the current average equity of mortgaged homes, people increased their equity, the current average equity. So people have an average equity in their homes now of $194,000. It was significantly less earlier this year. So people are really working to pay off their mortgages and probably being a little bit more conservative with their money. Housing has really come to be one of the most, it has a very different meaning than it did a year ago. So people are spending a lot more time in their homes and therefore a lot more money on their homes, in making improvements, paying down the mortgage, that sort of thing. So overall equity is increasing at a great rate. Um, so yeah, 10.8% increase in equity over the course of the year. And this is a quote from the chief economist at CoreLogic. Over the past year, strong home price growth has created a record level of home equity for homeowners. The average family with a home mortgage loan had 194 in home equity in the third quarter. This provides an important buffer to protect families if they experience financial difficulties, and is one reason for the generational low in foreclosure rates. So people just own more equity in their house than they have in the past. In 2008, people didn't own very much of their home. They were taking loans, lines of credit out on their home and kind of blowing it on trips and jet skis and not really focusing on paying down their mortgage. So when the value of their homes dropped, they were underwater, and that is what caused the 2008-9 housing crisis. But people did learn from that, and they own a lot of equity in their home now. So there's, even if people fall on hard times, many of them will be able to either stay in their home or trade down for something that would have a lower payment. And year over year, homeowner equity gains nationwide. We're in the top, we're the top slot here at 36,000 in our average equity gain year over year. So go Washington. And this is from the first American chief economist. As homeowners gain equity in their homes, they are more likely to consider using that equity to purchase a larger or more attractive home. The wealth effect of rising equity. In today's housing market, fast rising demand against the limited supply of homes for sale has resulted in continued house price appreciation. So people's equity in their homes is rising, and they're not really trading up because there's not as many homes for sale. So this is creating a little bit of a cog in the system, but people are gaining wealth and overall. And I did think this was interesting to dip into. We looked at this earlier in the year with the home price changes during the last 6 recessions. You see in 4 of the 6 last recessions, home values increased throughout the time of the recession. 2008 was our obvious exception to that, but the housing market and the loan market was the cause of the collapse in that case, whereas the housing market has been one of the few bright spots in our economy throughout the entirety of 2020. And overall, nationally, homes have raised 7.3% on their home prices. So, and looking back at forbearance, there were a lot of people having troubles paying their mortgage at the beginning of the pandemic, and really they were trying to find a way to prevent 2008-9 from happening again, and prevent all these people from losing their homes. Just provide them a safety net to get them over to when they're recovered. But the initial forecast was that 30% of mortgages were going to go into forbearance. Our actual peak was 8.6%, and we're currently at 5.5%. And of those in forbearance, here's kind of how they're broken down now as of November. So 2.2 million had their forbearance extended, but 2.5 removed while performing. So they continued to pay off their mortgage even though they had the option not to. They continued to keep paying that, and 625,000 people paid off their mortgages during that time that they were in forbearance. So they don't have to worry about that going forward because they're all paid off now. And 512,000 are in active forbearance on their original term because there's a time limit. And those 434,000 expired delinquent in loss mitigation. So they're working with the banks on a plan so they don't lose their home. And the 116,000 expired delinquent, that is the group that we need to be concerned about. They would be the most likely to have their homes fall into foreclosure. But you can see overall what a small percentage of the overall homes in forbearance that actually is. So it is way, way better than all of the experts were forecasting at the beginning of the pandemic. However, if you are a homeowner who is considering forbearance, or you're in forbearance, and I have this guide up on my website, seggleston.johnlscott.com/homeowner-help. And this guide is about protecting your investment, talks about what forbearance is, the benefits and drawbacks of using the forbearance program. And I really, if you're struggling to pay your mortgage or you know someone who is, I suggest you take a look at this guide or share it with them so that they can have this information available. All right, so if you have questions, please feel free to reach out. I am here to help you. I just love talking about real estate, and I would love to hear from you and chat about what's going on in your local area. Stop my share here. So remember, Wednesday the 30th, I will be doing, in lieu of next Friday and the Friday after, I'm going to split the difference on that Wednesday and do 2020 recap and 2021 forecast. So stay tuned, and I will see you then. Have a fantastic week.